to our next guest. He's Bryan Munson of Big Red Report, BigRedReport.com. Bryan, we always bring you on when someone commits like that, and sure enough, Bose Joseph is the latest commit. Bryan, tell us about Bose.
Bose Joseph, Cypress Bay High School in Florida, about 6'1", 190 cornerback. You know, and you got to do some searching around, guys. I know that a lot of the people probably that have gone out there and tried to look for his film have come across about an 8-minute clip on YouTube, and that clip, if you look a little closely, guys, it's actually, I think, of his junior season, and it's not spectacular film. It's mostly him playing in a lot of zone. It does do a couple of good things. It shows some instinctiveness. It shows the ability to go ahead and wrap up. He's a good solo tackler, which is something that Nebraska really needs out there on those edges a little bit, because Nebraska was schemed so well this last season. Teams would scheme Nebraska to get one-on-one matchups and really put the pressure on one guy to make the play against a running back. But if you go on to the huddle and look a little bit more for some film, you thought about a 2-minute clip, and you start seeing some real physical, tight bump and run. And you also see this athletic guy that's able to block extra points and block punts. And he looks the part. Question all these guys when you start talking about a 6'1" cornerback are the hips going to be quick enough to play there? And actually, in talking to some of our national guys today, he's a guy that at some point down the road eventually could move back over to safety, which I definitely don't think that's the case with him initially. Anyway, when you start talking about a class right now that's just loaded with safety guys, and also you start talking about, maybe even like a Drake Martinez joining the class, which you could ultimately see him playing safety as well.
Yeah, you have a crowded class in safety, but really right now, as part of the team, you don't have a whole lot of true safeties in there. Some of these guys may get big enough to move down the linebacker. When you look at him, do you project him at any point being a playing cornerback, or are you talking about him just coming into the program first year or two, maybe not playing, and then growing to safety?
I think that's the way it's going to go, more like a Charles Jackson that seems to be going for him.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right about those safeties. I mean, I watched Singleton a year ago,
yeah,
and I really felt like he was more of a guy playing safety, but he should be more of a will. I think Drake Martinez is a guy that potentially starts out more of a peso guy, could move down to a will spot. Of course, Nathan Jerry is a guy that's big and explosive and athletic, and he could move down to a will spot as well. I think there's a bunch of candidates out there that could do it, but also you start talking about a Bo Pelini system that where you could roll out there into more of a 3-safety look and do more like a nickel package with that peso guy back there, and you're going to have a lot of athleticism and big guys back there with this class.
Talking with Bryan Munson of Big Red Report, BigRedReport.com, on the commit from Bose Joseph from Florida. His high school coach says that he could play all positions. He obviously has good size. And it was also described, these are the kind of the bigger SEC corners we've been hearing about, the athletic but bigger SEC-style corners that, Bo has been coveting. Do you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely, and I think there's a fine line where you start talking about a guy that is playing high school corner now that really projects to safety, or a guy that really is going to be a high school corner that's longer, that could remain at college as a quarterback and potentially could grow into a guy. He's 190 pounds. You're not talking about a 205 guy. You're not talking about a guy that's going to be 210 by the time he gets to Lincoln. You're talking about a guy that's going to be, under 200 pounds. A guy that's going to, eventually probably going to come in there, put on a little bit of weight, but he's going to keep that quickness, and he has some tremendous quickness and athletic ability, guys. And I think that's the key when you start talking about a guy with that length, is if the frame is just going to allow him to go ahead and just start putting on that weight, well, all of a sudden you do lose a little bit of that quickness, but you got that strength, you got that power. Plus, he's such an excellent tackler. It's not a huge thing when you see a guy like that has to make a move forward to safety. As long as you have that tackling aspect and that physical behavior, that's the part that has to be there. The body can come, but you've got to have the mindset to play the safety position.
We were talking about the safety position, and it looks like Marcus McWilson officially is going to visit Kentucky. Any concern you have with that visit? I
have been concerned with the moment that Vince Morrow said he was going to Kentucky.
Yeah.
That potentially that this could play into McWilson, and of course Courtney Love's commitment to Nebraska. Their families are all very, very close with Vince Morrow. And it wasn't any question, I don't think there was enough time for him to really play all that much with Courtney Love. I think that there probably would have been a little bit more of a chance that he would have done it had he not been an early enroller. But with McWilson, there's definitely enough time to do it since the Capital One Bowl and getting back there to Kentucky to do it. And that would be a huge loss for this class. That's the reason why I haven't mentioned him, because I figured we were going to talk about it. But I think that there is a serious, serious concern there for Nebraska potentially losing him. Is
that possibly a reason why this commitment of Joseph is so much more important, because you might lose McWilson?
Well, I think Bose is important because Nebraska's cornerback board really dried up. Deshaun Hunt, it seemed like, that there was Nebraska kind of backed off on that one. Of course, they lose Jonathan Cook to Alabama. Mm-hmm. Then you go back and you look at the board, and the board's pretty bare. And now you start talking about Bose and a guy that was making a late run in the playoffs and didn't want to take any visits until the season was behind him. So now at least you've got an opportunity to bring a guy like that in, who's at least a talented guy, and you're not going to just make a reach on that. I feel like Nebraska's got some answers there at the cornerback position. I think Jonathan Rose next year for Nebraska is going to be a guy that's going to walk in. He's going to surprise some people down there, the transfer from Auburn. I think the cornerback position is looking pretty good. I think they got some young guys that need to start working in at safety. And I think that's going to really be the long pole in the tent back there.
Talking with Bryan Munson of Big Red Report, BigRedReport.com, on today's commitment, but now also on the news that Marcus McWilson, the 4-star rated safety from Cardinal Mooney, is going to visit Kentucky. On that note, we saw earlier this week Bo Pelini make an in-house visit to Dominic Walker, who might have been fluttering a little bit in his commitment. Could we expect an in-house visit to Mr. McWilson this week with a former Cardinal Mooney alum?
Well, if there is, it's not going to be tonight. From all accounts tonight, Bo is down in Texas checking out Dwayne Johnson, the offensive lineman from Bel Air, Texas. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska got 2 commitments today, guys. I think Dwayne is a guy that's leaning towards Nebraska right now. I think he put Bo in the living room, give him a chance to talk to him, talk to his dad, and calm him down a little bit and talk about the opportunities there and get him on board. The other in-home, I think McWilson's definitely got to be on the schedule to get in there as quickly as possible. The other in-home I'm watching, and it's not because Nebraska is even visiting this kid, is James Clark. Mm-hmm. Urban Meyer's going to be in the living room with him tonight, trying to convince him to take an official visit to Ohio State. And he sounds like he at least is at a 50-50 deal, like whether he makes a trip or he doesn't. If he doesn't, after canceling a trip to Florida, it sounds like things could be looking really good for Nebraska right there. Maybe, a Nebraska, Clemson, Florida 3-dog race.
And I know we talk about these guys without seeing them play college football, but that's one of those rare speed talent guys that Nebraska hasn't gotten. They've lost out. Kenny Bell was, but coming out of Colorado, not as much people going after him. But this is one of those rare speed combination wide receivers, right? He might be the best athlete in the class if he signs.
Absolutely, without a question. And I think that's one of the reasons, too, why you go ahead and grab Travell Dixon. You instantly put an athlete tag on him, mm-hmm. because otherwise you start talking about, okay, with Walker and Gladney, potentially with Dixon being a 4th wide receiver, if you were to get a guy like Clark, you go ahead and tell Dixon, look, you might get a chance on offense. You may actually need you at corner, depending on whatever Bose does, and that could be the opportunity to be the only corner in the class. Or we could roll you back there to safety a little bit. I think he's one of those guys that's just kind of that has all the tools that you just have to go ahead and bring him in and teach him a position, just let him go to work. So I think that was ultimately a good get for Nebraska. I think it's one of those things with the luxuries of coming with a larger class. You can take a guy like that who's athletic and go ahead and try then to get him to translate to a position or two and then narrow things down.
Bryan Munson, Big Red Report, BigRedReport.com. Bryan, appreciate the info today, and we will certainly keep a close eye on this.
All right, it's always a pleasure, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bryan.
That would be something if Nebraska could pick up James Clark.
Oh,
but
the speed burner.
The stuff with McWilson, that's a little concerning.
It's